Alright, so we didn't really make a lot of headway in that first video, but we did kind of figure out certain things that we needed from the game. Alright, and two of those things were the number of dice that we're going to play with and the number of players. And the number of dice, we're going to take either the number 1 or the number 2, and the number of players, we're going to take anywhere from 2 to 10. Alright, so let's go ahead and set those up. They're both integers. Alright, so you basically just do int and then whatever you're going to call each of those variables. Alright, so int, I'm calling mine num underscore dice and num underscore players. Alright, so we can get rid of that now because we've done that. And in case I didn't say this in the last video, I am working in Eclipse Oxygen 2, which is a free download online. I recommend if you've got access to a computer that you can download things and install it, get this program. It works great. I haven't had any issues with it yet. The online IDEs, they give me errors. I'm not sure exactly why. I don't know if it's a connection problem or whatever, but I haven't had any issues building anything in Eclipse Oxygen 2 yet. Alright, so int num dice and int num players. Now we're going to prompt the user for a number of dice to play with and store it to the variable, or num dice, for the number of dice. So up here, I've got import any libraries needed. I believe I told you exactly what to import. Now normally we would do import java.util.scanner for our scanner utility. Alright, because that's how we're going to get input from the user. But I'm going to be using other things from that java.util library. So I'm going to go java.util.star, which will give me access to the entire library. Alright, and that'll look just like that there. Alright, so to prompt the user. Now, for me, I like using a do-while loop. And let me go ahead and pop it in there, and then I'll explain exactly kind of what it does if you don't already know. Alright, so this is the format for a do-while loop. And what we're going to do is we're going to do something in here while this condition down here is not being met. So what I say, we're going to go in here, we're going to prompt the user for the number of dice. So to do that, we've got to throw something out there to the user so that they can see what we want from them. So you can just copy this print line down here, Control C, Control V to paste it up here, and I'm going to do a print because I like everything to be on the same line. So we're going to ask them a question, and when they enter their answer, it's going to be at the end of that line. It's not going to be below it. So the question is, how many dice do you want to play with? Alright, pretty simple. How many dice do you want to play with? Question mark. And then I let them know what I'm looking for. 1 or 2. Alright, very important because if they don't know, maybe they're thinking, hey, I can play with 4 or whatever. But we're only setting this game up for a max of 2 dice. Now they can enter other things, and that's where this while condition comes in down here. So we need to force them to give us a 1 or a 2. And if they don't give us a 1 or a 2, then we're going to loop back through our loop here. Alright, so we want a 1 or a 2. So basically I would say whatever, which we're going to store it to num dice up here. Alright, so I would say while num dice is less than 1 or num dice is greater than 2, I want to keep looping through here. So let me go ahead and type that in. Alright, so while num dice is less than 2 or, which is the pipe symbol, two of them, numDice is greater than 2, we're going to loop back in here. Now you'll see that my numDice are underlined, and that's because I haven't initialized numDice yet. All right. To initialize it, we need to get that input from the user and store it into numDice. So to do that, we go down to the next line, and we need to get the input. So let's go ahead and figure out how to do that. And I think I told you it will be with the scanner class. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. I told you star gives me access to the entire utility, but if you're only going to use the scanner from that utility, then rather than have all that junk code, because it's going to put all that code into your program, then you could just do scanner at the end. Just like that. So we'll leave it that way for now until we get to our next thing that we're using from there, and then we'll change it back to the star. So down here under my int, I'm going to create a scanner variable that I can use in my program. All right, and once again, remember this stuff is case sensitive. So this is how you do it. You type in scanner with a capital S, and then call it whatever you want to call it. Now I call it SC. That just seems to be the standard. If you go around and you start looking at other people's code, you can call it S, you can call it whatever you want. You can even say scanner if you want. But it's going to be equal to new scanner, and then in parentheses system.in. And basically we're taking input. All right, we're taking input from the keyboard, where it's kind of like down here, system.out, we're outputting to the monitor. Okay, now to use this, we would call just the SC, and then what type of variable are we getting? And it's an integer. So, and I will take you over and show you this in just a minute. We're going to go, dot, and you can see different things down here that you can use with that. But we're going to go next. And then you can see all the different next down here. And even though it's not listed, it's going to be next int because we're taking an integer. All right, and then you can see, like I say, that's the other good part about this Eclipse program is you got this IntelliSense where it gives you things that you can use. So we're going to do open close parentheses, just like that. And then put a semicolon at the end of the line. Now it's all great, but once again, we haven't initialized our numDice yet. And the way to do that is we're going to set that equal to whatever the input is, because this is the input here, sc.nextInt. So numDice is going to be equal to that. All right, just like that. And as you can see, my two underlines there, the red underlines, let me know that something was wrong. They have disappeared now. And right now I should be able to run this code and it should give me this question here. Let me go ahead and try it. We'll click OK. And all right, how many dice do you want to play with? 1 or 2? And as I told you, we have a condition here. So if I type in a 0, which is less than 1, it should loop me through back through here, because it says, wow, the number of dice is less than 1, or the number of dice is greater than 2. So I'm going to try a 0 and a 3 first, and it should re-ask me the question. All right, so it re-asked me the question. Let me go ahead and type a 3. Re-ask me the question. Now we'll go ahead and type a 2. All is good. And then if you just want to make sure that it works with 1, we'll run it again. And we'll type in 1 this time. And all is good, because it let me out of the loop. So that's one of the reasons that I leave this down here, so that I can check to make sure I get out of my loops and I get to the end of my program. All right, so we've prompted the user for the number of dice. All right, let's see. And we'll go ahead, because the other thing is making sure that the variables are accessible in the program. So let me go ahead and say num dice equals, and then we'll use that variable. All right, so I'm going to put all is good, number of dice equals, and then whatever the number of dice is. That way we can make sure that that number is getting outside of that loop and coming down here in the program where we're going to use it later. All right, so let me rerun this. And we already know that it won't work if you put in a 0 or a 3. So we're going to go ahead and pop in a 2, and it should say number of dice equals 2. So there's my 2, and number of dice equals 2. Let's rerun this, and it says all is good. That means I'm outside of my loop. I ended the program. So let's type a 1, make sure that it works with a 1. And number of dice equals 1. All right, so I can use that later on in my program to determine how many dice I'm going to generate a number for and use in my roll. Now we need the number of players. So once again, you can just copy this. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. And we'll copy this, Control C. And we'll pop it down here, Control V. But this time, we don't want num dice, we want num players. So let's go ahead and change this to players. Alright, change all this to players. And this to players. Alright, and what do we say? 2 to 10. So if this is less than 2, and this is greater than 10, and what else? How many players? And we're going to tell them we want a number between 2 and 10. And the one thing that I do want you to notice, because I see this in a lot of code, you don't have to create multiple scanners for multiple variables or to get multiple variables from the user. All right, you'd use one scanner and you can use that through your entire program. All right, as long as it's within the scope of where you're getting the input. All right, so, and like I say, with this, we can use it anywhere here in the main function. And let's see, and that's going to be an int. Very important. Let me go ahead and show you this real quick. All right, so I went over to the internet, typed in Java Scanner class, and then, of course, had to look through a couple things. But this is the best laid out one, I guess. And it gives you the things that you can use with scanner. So you'll be like next and next line both take strings. Next byte takes a byte. Short. The rest of them are pretty self-explanatory. Int, which we just used, takes an integer. Long, float, double. So if you need those in any program that you build in the future, you just use that one scanner and then you determine what you're going to use out of these. All right, so let's get back over to the program. So this should work now, and we want to, well, let's go ahead and run through it and make sure that it doesn't take a 1 and it doesn't take an 11 here, and then we'll add it down here to make sure that our number's getting out. So we just go up here, we click on the play, click OK. We got to enter our number of dice, so we'll say 2. And how many players? All right, so I'm going to say 5. No, actually, we're going to go with 1 first to make sure that it prompts us again for how many players. So 1, Okay, and then 11, because we know that's outside the range that we set up right here, because if it's higher than 10, we're going to keep doing this. So enter. All right, now we can do 10. And now it should go to all is good and give us the number of dice. And it does. All right. And we're going to go ahead and add some more code down here so that we can say, and the number of players equals. All right, so I added that, and of course you can see it kind of runs off the screen. Doesn't look really neat. So here's something you can do, and a lot of coders do this. We want to keep things no longer than this right here, so you can just go down here and bring it down. All right, just like that, and as you can see, it automatically indents. And now we're going to run this, and we'll hit 2, and we'll do a couple other ones just to make sure it's getting the various numbers. All right, so this time we'll play with 1 dice. And we'll play with 2 players just so that we can see our low end works. And all is good. Number of dice equals 1 and the number of players are 2. All right, run it again. We'll use 2 dice and 5 players. All right, so our numbers are getting out. So basically everything that we wanted to check is all working. So we can get rid of all this junk stuff that we got in here because we don't really need it anymore. All right, so we'll end this video right here, and what we'll do is, because we know we're getting the number of dice and the number of players. Now, most games today take names. They don't just say player 1, player 2. You get to input your name, and so we're going to allow our players to do that based on the number of players that are playing the game. All right, so we'll get into that in the next video, so stick around.